Okay. Oh, can you hear? No? Is that okay? Really? How about way in the back there? You okay? All right. I can't hear myself. Well, welcome back, everybody, to our Friday night Avatamsaka Sutra class. I won't ask you all how you did during the summer. I did encourage everybody to try to do some memorization, and I got one email of somebody who really was working on the Heart Sutra, I think in Chinese and English. So I'm sure you all were very, very polite and not wanting to disturb me with emails during the summer, knowing I was up in Maine and couldn't get them anyhow. But anybody memorize anything this summer? A little bit? You did? Namo. I did Namo. I memorized Namo. Okay. Well, anyhow, I'll keep encouraging this. Less news and more memorization will get you through pretty good. We're going to start, I'm looking at my page number, I'm looking at about 12 and 13. This is the new section. Is that right, Locke? We're starting on the new? 12 and 13. So we're right in the middle of 12. And I'd like to, although the lecture is totally in English, because I never really gained any mastery of Chinese, but I'd like to read some of the Chinese together just to get started. This is just a tradition. We have my teacher who used to lecture in Chinese, but then we would translate into English and sometimes into Vietnamese, sometimes even into Cantonese and Hakka. So sometimes a text could go with 4 different translations in one evening. But right now, and I think Heng Sure does Chinese and English, or no? On Sunday. Okay. Okay, so let's give it a shot. Those of you who are new to the romanization method here, how many know how to do this? If you look at your page here, I don't mean on the left-hand side where all the Chinese characters are, and then there's a pinyin romanization method. Everybody familiar with that? Oh, wow, okay. So you know what the little signs mean and everything? Okay, that's for us dummies. Okay, here we go. 二是文殊师利菩萨，闻得受菩萨愿，佛子如来所悟，为是一法，云何乃说无量诸法，现无量刹，化无量众，现无量因，是无量善，知无量心, and we'll stop there. Okay, we're in chapter 10 of the Avatamsaka, and we have 30 to go. So no need to worry, we'll take our time. This 10 is, chapter 10 is called The Bodhisattvas Ask for Clarification. And there could be a number of reasons why they're inquiring. One is, it could be that on some of these more subtle elements or dimensions of Dharma, of the teachings, they're not perfectly clear yet. There could be areas where there's uncertainty. I think more it's along the lines of maybe getting it really under their belt, so to speak, so they can become skilled and reliable teachers for others. They may not even ask these questions themselves, but living beings might. For example, in this first one, someone could ask, based on what we're looking at here tonight, well, what's the best thing to practice? Or which religion is the best religion? Or any of those would come out of this passage. So let's look at this. At that time, Manjushri Bodhisattva inquired of, or virtuous leader Bodhisattva, disciple of the Buddha, all the thus come ones enlightened to only one Dharma. Why then do they explain innumerable Dharmas? Why do they appear in innumerable Buddha lands? Why do they transform innumerable sentient beings? Why do they expound with innumerable different sounds? Why do they manifest innumerable bodies? How do they know the innumerable minds? This is the minds of living beings. Why, and continue, why do they demonstrate innumerable spiritual penetrations or powers? How do they everywhere universally cause innumerable worlds to quake? How can they display innumerable exquisite adornments? And how can they manifest an infinite variety of states of being? When none of these distinctions exist within the Dharma nature. So the basic question here is the innumerable is the wuliang, wuliang, wuliang that goes throughout the Chinese, limitless without measure. Innumerable is another translation of this. It can mean literally without number, but it can basically mean just a huge amount of things. Disciple of the Buddha, this is Manjushri, who is inquiring of virtuous leader Bodhisattva, and basically makes a very straightforward statement. All Buddhas, thus come ones, another name for Buddhas, awaken to only one Dharma. They awaken to the very same Dharma. It doesn't change over time or culture. What they awaken to is an unchanging insight into the nature of reality, things as they are. And basically you could say the Four Truths, the Eightfold Path, all of the various basic components of the awakening experience, they do that. And it's very interesting because this is then represented as something that is, some people use the word transhistorical in talking about it, meaning it's not limited to a particular country or a particular time or a particular ethnicity or even to particular beings. Because in this teaching he's talking about tonight, he's not just talking about how do they teach people, which is certainly the case, but also they teach and transform across the six paths of existence: hells, animals, ghosts and spirits, people, asuras and devas. So we're looking at a sort of a spectrum of sentience that manifest across the realm of reality, or the Dharma realm. So this becomes very complicated because if you're talking about people already, it's complicated. How do you relate to and teach people from all these different backgrounds? But then when you get into how do they manifest and teach in realms that are not human, how do they teach and transform animals? How do they teach and transform ghosts? You know, you say, well, I don't believe in that. That's okay. I'm just saying the text presents this as a possibility, a very real possibility, and some people verify this. If you read, which we do in our classes at the university, we'll read the biographies and autobiographies of cultivators of the way, monks and nuns, from the time of the Buddha up to the present. They're still around, by the way. I don't know how many are in Berkeley, but they're still around. People are really cultivating. And they will relate very matter-of-factly in their biographies and journals their encounters with ghosts and spirits and animals in a teaching transforming way. So it's not like you have to use your fantastical imagination or even take it from me, but they do relate this in a very matter-of-fact way. The one we were reading was really interesting, was this, this would be early 20th century, young woman in Thailand who became an arhat. And she relates from her earliest childhood up to her abilities to, and she didn't try to get these just came from the result of her purity and meditation practice. She started to have direct encounters with this realm. And she writes about it and relates it. In the same way you say, well, this summer I went home and visited my mother. Okay, I visited this spirit, or this being came to me, or this animal cried out and we had a conversation. So In any event, what I'm trying to point out is that we have to look at this more broadly when they say, why did they explain innumerable dharmas, innumerable teachings? It's because each teaching has to be specific. It has to be, what's the word you'd use, sort of catered to maybe, or appropriate for, or resonant with whoever it's being taught. So this is the trick here. And I want to express this again, but this chapter really brings it out. There's no one dharma, capital D. There's only innumerable dharmas, or you could say gates of liberation, or not untiers. And so the idea that there's one dharma, that it's like this creed, is completely off. There are teachings, but these teachings are only dharma in the sense that they connect to and relate to a living being and have a catalytic effect of changing something. So just as they're existing and, you know, behind a shelf or you know, on the shop shelf of the book, or even you wear it around your neck, unless you use it, it's really not an active dharma. It's, at the best you could say it's passive, or it's dormant. So dharma's only dharma as it comes alive to teach. I can remember we were talking about this the other day. Oh, I'm really digressing. Keep me back on track. I'll come back to this. I remember when 1989, they had their first ordination in China after 1949. So that was, 1949 was the end. In 1989, they had an ordination. And because one of the disciples of my teacher knew President Bush at the time, he said they want to have some American monks come over and certify and transmit ordination on this platform in Shanghai. And so I was a monk at the time, and so 4 of us, Monk Heng Sure, myself, and 2 others, went over as the American delegation to China to participate in this ordination. And I got all sorts of stories that come up, but just a few. One tonight. This one tonight was after we did the ordination, we toured around. We went to the 4 holy mountains. What are anybody know the 4 holy mountains? Puto, Wutai, Ome, and Johua, right. And we went to all those mountains, but we didn't go, well, they didn't want us to go to those mountains because there were still remnants of the Cultural Revolution that were really hard to look at. So they only wanted us to go to places where we'd come back with a positive impression, because we were supposed to give a report to Bush how there was religious freedom in China now. So in some of the places we went, they frantically worked really hard. So like when you went up and you touched a statue, the gold paint would stick to your fingers. It was like freshly painted right off the press. Any event, one of the places we went was this wondrous museum. And I saw the museum, there was like beautiful statues were in there, and drums and bells, and monks and nuns' robes, and all the instruments. And I said, wow. He says, yes. I said, why are they? Well, we're protecting them. So protecting them, yeah. We're protecting Buddhism by taking all the vital instruments, including the sutra text, and putting behind glass cages so no one will just, you know, they won't be destroyed. But I said, but they won't be used either. And this came to be sort of, in my mind, a kind of, you protect it by putting it in the freezer, and it no longer has a living presence. So all these things are meant to be outside the glass. So in the same way, that's why I was encouraging you to do some memorization, because otherwise you just got it in your museum, which is cool. It's like collecting butterflies, I suppose, but it's better to use them. Any event, now I digress, I have to come back. Oh, there's not one dharma, there's many different dharmas or teachings, and each one is skillfully applied like a medicine to the illness. And if it's not applied to the illness, it doesn't have an effect, and sometimes it can be the opposite. So just as within Buddhism itself, you have so many schools and traditions, practices, text. It's called, religious scholars call the Buddhist collection, it's called a canon. Everybody familiar with that term? I never know, because sometimes I say these things, and then my niece will say, I thought you didn't fight. What do you mean? We have canons. So canon means a collected body of teachings or books. It's called an open canon in Buddhism as opposed to a closed canon. Some have a closed canon. This doctrine has been taught. It's in this. It's no more. It's not added to it. There's only one thing, the one book, so to speak. But in the Buddhist canon, there's many canons. Tibetan Siva canon, then they overlap, Pali, various Mahayana and Korean and so forth. So there's not just one canon. Moreover, they're open in the sense that they can be added to. So there's an actual division of the teachings, meaning basically not yet been, still to come. So that's open in that sense. So you have this very elastic, wide-ranging in Buddhism, and even sometimes within the same school or tradition. You say, well, we have the Chan or the Zen tradition, one of the major schools, but within that, there's all these different schools and approaches and lineages and so forth, all these myriad Dharma doors. So then maybe what Manjushri is asking here is, which one's right? Which one's the best one? So any answers on that? See if you're still awake. Which one's the best one? Well, I'll mention there's five major ones they talk about. They talk about Pure Land practice, reciting Amitabha, Guanyin, recitation practice. There's Vinaya, Shila, the precept school. The third one is the study school. You devote yourself to the Shastras and the Sutras, and sometimes memorizing them, but looking at them very carefully and reading commentaries. And then what else? The Chan, meditation school. And then finally the school that's called the esoteric school. Basically the 3 M's, mudras, mantras, mandalas. Okay, those are the 5 kind of major schools. So which one's the best one? Let me do a straw vote. Huh? The one that works for you. That's a pretty good answer, because if it didn't work, why would it be good, huh? The trouble with that you're absolutely right, and that's how it's presented, because it's like, which medicine is best for you? If you see them as 5 different medicines, from baby aspirin up to bone marrow transplant, which one you apply is very critical for which illness, right? But there's a little trouble with that one, and this one I found out myself. The one that worked for me was the one I did not want. So it's not the case always that the one that is the best for you is the one that you like the best, if I could put it that way. I hated bowing, okay? I didn't want anything to do with it, and that's what I ended up doing for 3 years. So I'm just saying, yes, and it was the right medicine, and it worked to some degree, better than anything else, but boy, was it bitter to do, especially at the beginning. So you got to be careful here when you say the one that works for you is not necessarily the one you feel most comfortable with. You have to feel comfortable from your Daoshin, from your way mind, and not from your ordinary mind. If you're looking at it from your way mind, then you're on. If you're looking from your ordinary mind, it'll be a cost-benefit analysis that doesn't really produce. So this is tricky, which is why sometimes in the beginning it's good to have teachers, and also to look at different text and see in that if you can find something that you can do, but often maybe you don't like immediately. Okay. The 6th Patriarch, Huineng, I'm just going to quote something from him tonight because he supports this idea. This is from the Platform Sutra. He says, the Dharma is of one kind. The Dharma is of one kind, but understanding of it may be direct or gradual. Dharma itself is neither direct nor gradual. Rather, it is people who are sharp or dull. Hence the terms direct and gradual. So where he's going here, he's going again with the Dharma is one. He's supporting the text here tonight, but he's saying it can be very direct and right on, or it can be roundabout and gradual. But It's not the Dharma that's way, it's people that way, or either dull or sharp. And then he goes on to say something like this. He says, good and wise friends, in this teaching of ours, 84,000 wisdoms. Okay, this is not literal, by the way. Okay, it doesn't mean literally 84,000. It's just a big number, right? It used to be a big number. I don't think it's a big number anymore. Even income, you say I make 84,000 a year. Wow, I'm sorry. I feel sorry for you. When I was a kid, like that was really rich, right? Now you add a number, 184, yeah, maybe in the middle somewhere there. Anyhow, at this time when the texts were coming out, 84,000 was a really big number, stupendous. From this one teaching, 84,000 wisdoms flow, and they call it from this one prajna, this one wisdom. Why? Why? Why does 84,000 flow from the one prajna? There's only one prajna. He's saying the same thing the text is saying here. They are enlightened to only one dharma, one prajna, one wisdom. Then he asks, why do we have 84,000 wisdoms, various prajnas flowing from this? For example, you could see the 6 paramitas as different prajnas. Well, there we go. Quiet, nice and quiet. She said she didn't know. He says, because people have 84,000 kinds of afflictions, hang-ups. And then he goes on and say, good and wise friends, all of the sutras and the writings of both the great and small vehicles and the 12 divisions of the canon, all these were established because of people. They weren't established sort of apart from people. This is coming right out of the human realm. These are antidotes for human issues, human problems, humans' loss of meaning and purpose, humans' worries, cares and concerns. Even the great one of I'm born only to die and the affliction that comes from that reality. All of these come about because they're addressing those human problems. And they could only, and this is a really key line, he says, and they could only be set up because of their wisdom nature. So this is the key here. The dharmas arise, and this includes the Avatamsaka. Sometimes we read this and we go, this is so hard to get. It's just so out there. And yet, this text is saying that too is meant to address the human, and it could only come out if the humans had the potential to receive it. If there was no potential on the human side to receive this, this would be something very esoteric, almost like incomprehensible. Now the difference is, when I first encountered the Avatamsaka, I thought it was too far out. Only after a lot of bowing did it start to kind of make sense a little bit. But it goes back to, I think, what the 6 patriarchs saying, the Dharma didn't change. I went from being really dull to less dull. I didn't go to sharp, but I became less, and as I became less dull from bowing, then this thing started to go. So my quote, wisdom nature started to open up a little bit. Even why we sit 45 minutes before the class at night here is to create a space where our nature can calm and be still. We can sort of let go of distractions, and in that stillness, in that purity and stillness, the text can come alive in a different way it would if we were just reading an Umbard or something, or in an Uber ride. And so this kind of stilling the nature, precepting the nature, allows for a receptivity that doesn't come when we're all scattered. So this is how this method works. And then he goes on to say, which is a really powerful line, if there were no people in the world, all the myriad Dharma teachings would not exist by themselves. Very important, because what you're getting at is something Master Hua was stressing. I'm not calling this Buddhism. I don't like that term. He said, I'm calling it the teaching of the mind, the teaching of living beings, the teaching of humanity. Because what he saw in these teachings was exactly what Hui Neng is saying here. They don't exist apart from humanity. They're integral to humanity. They're not something, even the divine, the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the divine, is a continuum of the human. It's not a duality. There's the sages and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and they're human. No, this is one continuum. People become better people, become sages, become Bodhisattvas, become Buddhas, and so forth. But it's not like they're different beings. These are just different functions of the same nature. this is really, I mean, at the key to understanding the Dharma, this is really, really important. Otherwise, you think it has nothing to do with me. They're just talking about the virtuous leader Bodhisattva, Manjushri Bodhisattva. You know, they're all out there someplace, and I'm never going to get there, and tell me something about myself. But this is actually talking about your best self. Yeah, anyhow. They appear in all these lands, and the text goes on. I'm trying to move along a little, as you can tell, because I'm getting scolded for going too slow. So excuse me. I like to think of it as a virtue that we're going deeply, but I also know, even from my childhood, I got criticized for this. We would be going on an outing, and my parents would be in the car. My 3 sisters would be in the car, all ready to go with their swimming gear and picnic, and I'd be the last one. I said, "Come here," and I had this expression. I never understood what I meant by it, even now. But I had 3 words I'd always say. Take me time. And I don't know if I was saying like, I'm going to take my time, yo, or if it's like, it takes me time. They took it as an insult. I'll take my leisurely time. Any event, I'm going to try to move along. This line, though, is, as we're reading this, I'm trying to think here. So the text goes on, and Manjushri is asking, when none of these distinctions exist within the Dharma nature, he's asking this question. How do they manifest when basically in the Dharma nature, none of these things exist on their own? I have missed something. Do you have? I have in the Chinese. Where does this appear? It's got jie bu ke de, but I don't see that in the English. Do you? Why did they demonstrate innumerable worlds to quake exquisite adornments, how they manifest into variety of states, when none of these distinctions exist? Because that literally means, to me, I mean, I'm just, jia, all, not able to get, attain. But I don't see that in the translation here. Is this a mistake? Anybody see it? Right. I know it's a question, but bu ke de is not a question necessarily. I noted in Master Hua's comment, he addresses this. He actually addresses the bu ke de, and it's a very important line. So I would say, I will go back, maybe some of you can too, but at least on the English translation here, the one I have, I don't know, do you have it, maybe I have a different one online. In the book, is it there? None of these, Louder. That could be. But the de is more than just exist. This is used to express a very visceral kind of realization or getting or obtaining. It's a very strong expression. It's not like sure, not existing or not. In any event, I'm going to represent this as are not obtainable, and I think, and this is based on, as I read my teacher's commentary, it means essentially that all of these marks, all of these states, it says all their bodies, all their forms, their states of being, these marks, xiang, Jia And so this is basically saying, making a statement about emptiness, about sunyata. They're temporary, they're fleeting, they have no nature of their own. That's what this text is saying here. These things are all passing phenomena, and it's very much matches with the Heart Sutra. In the Heart Sutra it goes, when the Bodhisattvas they have this wonderful understanding and illuminate the five skandhas and see they're all empty, they cross beyond suffering difficulty. Then the text goes to the end, and because there's nothing to obtain, they're unimpeded in their minds, and because they're unimpeded, they're unafraid, and they leave upside down dream thinking far behind ultimate nirvana. So this is a really important passage here, that although these dharmas and these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas manifest all this, they have no nature of their own. They're like dreams, illusions, bubbles and shadows, like all other phenomena. Moreover, don't hanker for them is another message here. Don't think, I want to get these bodies or get this thing. It's basically saying, as Wei Nung says, in our own essential nature, there's basically not a single thing that can be grasped. So this is not just a statement of theory or philosophy, it's also a psychological statement. Let go, release your hold. Don't be seeking for anything. Because the very mind that seeks and wants is a mind that obstructs the realization of this liberation. So this is a very important line. I'll maybe do some homework on it as they come up. Okay. I was going to quote a longer section here to illustrate this because they can manifest in many forms. This is from, some of you know the Earth Store Sutra? Kashitagarbha in Sanskrit, Earth Store Bodhisattva. There's Earth Store. Well, there's an image of Earth Store in the window there, looking down on the hells, which is not here, out the other window must be, right? So I was really struck when I read this passage many years ago, and I still really enjoy going over it. Basically, Earth Store Bodhisattva is a bodhisattva who feels an incredible amount of sympathy, compassion, pity for beings who, through greed and anger and stupidity, end up basically losing their fortunes. And I mean fortunes, even the human body. By the way, if you notice how this passage follows, the prior 10 verses were all about the innumerable kinds of karma, basically the 84,000 afflictions, and these that follow are the 84,000 antidotes, the dharmas. So you can see there's a logic to the sequence of the verses here. And Earth Store Bodhisattva, whatever, an Earth Store Bodhisattva, not the Earth Store Bodhisattva, because this is a capacity that all of us have. All of us have Earth Store Bodhisattva capacity. It's true. So realizing that, then their desire, it's a wrong word, their resolution, their resolve to save and rescue living beings almost generates this multiplicity of what they call transformation bodies. They actually take on different forms. They manifest different medicinal characteristics and qualities in their being and as a being to reach and transform. And so this is a very high level of functioning. I mean, this is pretty incredible, but it's mentioned quite a bit. So he calls these division bodies, transformation bodies. The text above was saying, how did they put it here? Different sounds, kinds of bodies and forms is the one they use. And let me just quote the text here. My transformation bodies take across and liberate all the different kinds of living beings. I may appear in a male body. I may appear in a female body. I may appear in the body of a god or a dragon. I may appear in the body of a spirit or ghost. Now you're thinking, if a spirit or ghost body appears, it's going to scare the bejeebers out of me. So Earth Store wouldn't do that, even on Halloween. So Earth Store would appear in a body that would cause you to go, ha ha, whoa, even cry for the sense of, I feel something. I feel shame and remorse for what I've made of my life and I want to be different. So it's going to be sound and echo sort of thing. Body of spirit, I may appear as a mountain. Whoa. as a fountain, as a forest, as a stream, as a spring, as a river, as a lake, as well in order to benefit beings. So now you get the transformation bodies not only being, quote, sentient beings in different forms, but also elements of nature that can inspire and uplift. This is, often why many of the monasteries of old were located in the mountains and the remote wilderness areas, because that closeness to nature was a manifestation of some energy that would bring them back in touch with their nature. There's a new expression now, and I can't know the Japanese for it. It's called forest bathing. Oh, thank you. You go into the forest, not like we did in the 60s and bathe. You go into the forest and you let the trees and the energy of nature flow over you. This is actually very scientific because they've measured the chemicals and the distribution of gases and so forth that's happening, and it's incredibly healthy. It's a big thing in Japan, but it's becoming a big thing in the United States too. Anyway, there's forest bathing, but in a sense, you might be bathing in Earth Store Bodhisattva's transformation body if you're in that space. So treat it nicely. I mean, you don't have to bow down or anything, but I think, respect for nature could be a respect for Dharma protectors. And he says then, many ways I use all these to say beings. I could appear as God, Chakra, Lord Brahma, wheel-turning king. I may appear as a layperson. Now here's something that's going to be hard. The next three are going to be hard for you to swallow, but I'm going to say it's right from the text. I'm not making this. I may appear as in the body of a national leader, in the body of a prime minister, appear in the body of an official. And I would say, or not, but that's not there. I may appear in the body of a bhikshuni, bhikshu, upasaka, upasika, and so forth, appearing in the body of an arhat, a sound seeker, pratyeka Buddha, or a bodhisattva in order to teach and rescue living beings. It's not that I only appeared to them in the body of a Buddha. So this to me is really, wow, it's really pretty neat. But what I was going to do tonight, and I don't have much time left, so I better do it because I see there's a gathering in the back. You have some announcements tonight, right? Okay. So two themes here, I think. The one theme is these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that transform and appear in different forms to teach and rescue is a major one that comes out of the text here. But then also, it also bespeaks in the Brahmanet Sutra, it says, so therefore, you should really be kind to all living beings, because you don't know exactly who's who. Now, that's not exactly intrinsic motivation, but it is a thought. In fact, in the Brahmanet Sutra, it says, all living beings, not only all living beings, but all earth, air, fire, and water have been part of my body at one time, are part of my body now, or will be part of my body in the future. And all of them have been parents in the past, parents now, parents and friends in the future. Because of the distribution of the four elements of matter and energy, what you're looking at is an interconnected web of sentience. And therefore, this idea of self and others starts to break down. Why they're doing this is not because they're just motivated by compassion, but wisdom allows them to see this interconnectivity directly. And so it's coming as a natural response rather than some kind of, you might say, virtue. What's the word for that virtue? Signaling? Something like that. Anyway, so I was telling you, Heng Sure and I found our lost journals in boxes upstairs, and I took some time we took some time together since he's back from Australia, so he was in one room and I was in the other room. I go, hey, whoa, look at that one, because we were going through our different journals. These are the journals that appear basically from San Francisco up to the city of 10,000 Buddhas. Some of you know what I'm talking about. I won't go. Anyhow, we did a pilgrimage from there to there. And this one I just worked on this week, and I'm going to read it to you. This is my 4th January 1979 journal entry. And you'll see the connection maybe to the text tonight. And I'm just going to read my writing. You have to remember now, this was almost 50 years ago. Yeah, so spare me, you know, I'm kind of younger then. Anyhow, so here I write. Yesterday I got all excited because I thought I understood transference, a key principle and practice of the Bodhisattva path. I was all set to give, give, give. In my mind, I couldn't wait for a chance to practice vast giving and was eagerly looking, waiting for opportunities to give. What happened? 2 newspaper reporters showed up full of questions and talked my light away. Then 2 very weird men stopped. They kept trying to touch me and kept advancing until they had me backed up against the car. They claimed they were candidates for some secret brotherhood and heard we were bowing around the world. One kept flashing a creepy, pasted, leering smile while the other hovered over me with a cold frown. They finally left, but my troubles did not. Yesterday, a park ranger named Curtis stopped to talk. He returned today with an offering of kerosene for our lantern. So we had a little storm lantern at night for light that we'd read and translate the sutra. He was very sincere, very genuine and straight. About an hour later, an official government station wagon pulled out. Out stopped 2 men. They were wearing the same green uniforms and badges as Curtis, carrying the same guns. And I thought, oh, they must be friends of Curtis, the nice ranger. Here's my chance to give. And yet, there was something strange about them, even though to all appearances they looked legit. So I felt obligated to talk with them. Part of my job as Dharma protectors, you know, Heng Sure didn't talk. He kept a vow of silence, so it was my job to open my mouth. They asked a lot of questions, too many, and then I started to feel myself, I'm just reporting this, getting cold and drained of energy, literally cold and drained. Just then, another government car squealed to a stop across the road. A ranger in the same green uniform, official badge, same gun, but with a different righteous demeanor got out. This guy was really a Dharma protector, you could just tell. His energy was clean, strong, he clearly meant business. He never looked at me, but strided right past me and boldly walked up to the 2 men and squared off with them. By now, I was cold and tired and actually shaking, and I wasn't sure what was going on. This is Curtis, by the way, coming back. And the 2 men say, howdy, said the 2 men, kind of nervously to the ranger. Can we help you? Yeah, said the ranger sternly, glaring at them. I have a couple questions. Who are you 2? Well, I'm Bob, and this is my partner, Louie, he began. You new around here, pressed the ranger. Oh, no, I've been here for almost 5 years, and my partner, Louie, for 2, and he uneasily began, but the ranger cut him off with, oh, yeah? Well, this is my territory, my jurisdiction, has been for years, and I've never seen either of you before. He boomed, bracing for a showdown. And to make his point even stronger, he slowed his words and stared right into their eyes, repeating, this is my jurisdiction, and I do not recognize you 2. I slipped away and caught up to Heng Sure. The 3 of them continued to talk for a long time. The vibes were heavy, serious. It was pretty clear that the 2 men I took to be government officials were not who or what they seemed. They were imposters. It was also painfully clear to me that the real ranger saved me from a nasty experience. I went to sit down in the car to try to settle myself. I felt sick and weak. My batteries had just died. My thoughts of transferring and best giving were off the mark of no mark. I was attached to it and thus brought this unwelcome trouble to myself. And the passage we're reading tonight, you'll see that there's nothing to obtain. They don't attach to it at all. That's how they do what they do, but I was the opposite. I opened the Avatamsaka Sutra we'd been reading and translating, and there was these very words I needed to hear to put me in the right frame of mind. This is from the Avatamsaka. All the most wondrous happiness that Bodhisattva gains, he or she completely transfers to all living beings. And although they transfer to all living beings, they're not any way at all attached to transference themselves. So I said, what's the proper way to transfer? I asked myself, well, what would be the proper way to transfer? And this is really what happened. I'm sitting there. The wind blows through the car window. I was sitting there shaking and whatnot. And it flips the sutra page over. And it flips it over to this line. All the Tathagatas, as all the Tathagatas in the past have transferred their good roots, I make transference in the same way as well. And then this, I know that what I cultivate is like an illusion, like a shadow, like a moon's reflection in water, like an image in the mirror. They appear only through the coming together of causes and conditions, up to and including the Tathagata's final position. He accomplishes skillful, clever expedients and forever plucks out the roots of all seeking and all attaching. And I write here, the words couldn't have been more timely and perfect. Just then a car full of bright-eyed people, young and old, pulled up alongside, sat in the open car, they smiled and shouted, "Peace, continue!" Their good energy perked me right up, my spirits returned, and I was able to go back on the road and continue bowing. So, why I tell you this story, one is the idea that they have all these forms, all these manifestations, and yet they do it without any attachment, any grasping, bukkha, and also that Dharma protectors and bodhisattvas can even appear as park rangers. Now, yes, it's funny. So a week later, Master Hua stopped out for a visit, and he said, well, he'd always say, "Zamayang, what's up?" And I go, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you kind of listen. And then I told this encounter, and all of a sudden he just closed his eyes. And then he opened and he says, "That was a bodhisattva, Curtis the ranger." So I didn't know, but I think what it does is support the text idea that Buddhas and bodhisattvas don't look like this necessarily. They can look very ordinary. And one of their markers is it said that a true bodhisattva doesn't wait to be invited and asked and doesn't hang around to be thanked. So they have this markless quality that you wouldn't spot, except that it has something to do with helping and liberating you in quiet, sometimes profound ways. So I will stop there. We'll pick up the text next week. If I find more from the journals, if you want, I'll bring them. I know it's 50 years ago and they're probably old and dull, but yeah. And that'll keep me writing too. Any questions? No? Okay. In Dharma terms. Well, okay, so you could go a number of ways with that. You could say they weren't the good guys, they were the bad guys. But Master Hua would say, even the bad guys can help you along. So in a sense, they're teaching in reverse. In other words, oh, you're all wide open, you're outflowing, you're attaching and grasping. We're going to knock you on the head here a little bit. So I don't know. He didn't say who they were or weren't. He just said that the one was a bodhisattva. Good question. Good question. Anybody else? No? None? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Is there some announcements or something that needs you, Jinchuan or Jinwei, you want to take some time? I noticed the table here. These are not hand freebies, okay? Don't grab one on your way out.
So I know people know September 6th was a very special day in the Buddhist calendar. It was Ulambana. And it's a ceremony, I would say, continuing a practice that comes from the Buddha's time, when Venerable Mahamagdalena woke up and actually saw that his mom was suffering in the lower realms as a ghost. And he wanted to help her, and with his spiritual abilities, that people know he was the foremost in spiritual abilities, so he actually transformed food and offered to his mom. His mom got the food, and you can see, describes it in the sutra very interestingly. She says she covered the food so that no one else would see it. So the mind immediately is like, I want to keep this for myself. And then when she tried to eat the food, it became like hot coals and just burned her throat. So she couldn't eat. And so what was interesting is Mahamagdalena, of course, saw this and was deeply in pain. So he actually went to the Buddha asking for advice, asking what to do. How do I help my mom? And he said, although your spiritual abilities are, very awesome, the foremost in the community, still your strength is not enough. What you need to draw on is the collective strength of the whole Sangha, the whole community of practitioners. We often use the word noble friends. You need to gather together all the noble friends that we're practicing together and make offerings to the whole community of practitioners on behalf of your parents, dedicating the merit, talking about dedicating merit to your mother. And so that was what Ulambana became. So Ulambana, you have all these basins. It's not really a basin. I guess you have a cardboard box. And people make offerings. And tomorrow, we did a week later because on September 6th, we had a big gathering down, people might know, down in Boulder Creek. And so we did it a week later. And it's a chance to kind of really honor our ancestors. We like to call this intergenerational healing rather than intergenerational trauma. It's intergenerational healing that goes backwards. So what happened in the story is after Venerable Mahamagdhyana made the offerings, his mom actually was rescued from the lower realms. The merit helped her kind of find another rebirth. And not just his own mom, but many of the other beings also suffering received the goodness to be able to be freed. And so Venerable Mahamagdhyana then had another thought, which was, wow, this rescued my mother. Could people in the future also rescue their parents? And the Buddha says, good question. And the answer was yes. And so this is how the tradition developed through time and space to that it reaches us here in America. I don't know how many years, 2,500 years later. You would maybe calculate on how you calculate. And we're keeping that going. So if you have time tomorrow, we'll be doing the ceremony at 9 a.m. We'll recite the Ulambana Sutra 3 times, as well as the mantra for repaying parents' kindness. We'll recite it around the hall, outside, and we'll see how what arises, but very likely Rev Heng Sure will give some reflections on Ulambana. We'll have a community lunch together. So if you have time, definitely welcome everyone. It's not just a chance to kind of do something really wholesome on behalf of our parents, but I think it's also a wonderful chance to be part of the community. We haven't had so many recently just because of, I think, aging. Some of our community has a little bit difficulty getting here all the time, but for these big events, people still gather. So definitely happy for everyone to come. So tomorrow 9 a.m. we'll start here and also have it online. So 2 places.
If you can't, you don't have something to offer, and that's possible these days, still come. And one of the greatest gifts you can give to ancestors, including parents of past, is to be the best possible person you can be. Just really perfect your humanity. And even that's a gift that surpasses even material things. So by realizing your total perfect humanity as best you can, my parents would be very happy with that. So do my grandparents. And actually what Chinchuan's talking about was behind the virtue of that was a perfection of the humanity of that person who then relied on the Sangha. And basically this is what the Sangha is doing too. That's why there's virtue in it. So it's all coming from the heart and the mind. So you don't have any pockets to empty, empty afflictions, and come anyhow.
Is anything else you wish are happening? I think yeah, so we have also Rev Heng Sure will be giving his last lecture tomorrow night.
Whoa, come on.
No, in person. Last lecture in person here in Berkeley. He'll be flying back to Australia on, I think, the 17th. So if you want to come, tomorrow will be a good day to kind of just be still in the whole community. I think, let's see, after that we have, I think our regular schedule is going. So Wednesday, I think Stephen Tainer is lecturing online. Thursday we have the East Bay meditation Society with James Baraz and Eve Decker, and Friday, Marty starting up lectures. So definitely welcome to join us. Okay. So do dedication of merit. Definitely there's a lot of places in the world that could use some goodness. So choose your person, place, cause, or yourself. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to gain compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Bow in respect to the three jewels.